The diplomatic station floated quietly in space, right on the edge of human territory. Inside, everyone was nervous. Today, humans would meet the Vrelth for the first time. The Vrelth were famous across the galaxy as fierce warriors. Their fur was striped like ancient earth tigers, and they stood almost 7 feet tall. Every species that met them learned quickly to show respect. Minho stood in the greeting hall, adjusting his uniform for the 3rd time. He was a xenobiologist, which meant he studied alien life forms. His job today was to help humans understand the Vrelth culture. Next to him, Yuna checked her weapon one more time. She was a security officer, ready for any trouble. "They will be here in 5 minutes," Yamu said. He was the human ambassador, and he looked more worried than Minho had ever seen him. Remember, the Vrelth value strength above everything. Do not show fear. Do not show weakness. Minho nodded. He had read all the reports. The Vrelth were predators. They hunted in packs. They raised their children to be warriors from birth. This meeting was important because the Vrelth controlled 3 star systems that humans needed for trade routes. The doors opened with a soft hiss. Ambassador Kreth walked in first. He was massive, with orange and black fur and eyes that seemed to glow yellow in the station lights. His claws clicked on the metal floor. Behind him came more Vrelth adults, all looking just as dangerous. But then Minho saw something unexpected. Cubs. Small Vrelth cubs walked behind the adults. There were 5 of them, probably young based on their size. They were maybe 3 feet tall, with fluffy fur and big eyes. They moved in a group, trying to copy the serious walking style of the adults. Minho felt his heart squeeze in his chest. They were so small. Hyunwoo stepped forward and bowed. "Welcome, Ambassador Kreth. We are honored by your presence." Kreth did not bow back. "Humans, we have come to see if you are worthy of our alliance. We bring our cubs to show you what true strength looks like. Even our young ones are superior hunters." One of the adult Vrelth made a gesture. The cubs immediately spread out in a line. They crouched low, and their small faces became serious. They pulled back their lips to show tiny fangs. They made hissing sounds that were probably meant to be scary. "See how they hunt," Kreth announced proudly. "See how fierce they are. This is why the Vrelth are the greatest warriors in this sector." The cubs crept forward slowly, still making their hissing sounds. Their little tails swished behind them. One cub, smaller than the others, jumped up on its back legs and made the loudest hiss it could manage. Something broke inside Minho's professional training. "Oh my God," he whispered. "They are so cute." Yuna grabbed his arm. Minho no, but it was too late. Minho was already walking forward, a huge smile on his face. He knelt down so he was at the cub's eye level. The cubs stopped their hunting poses, looking confused. This was not the reaction they expected. "Look at you," Minho said in a soft, happy voice. "Look at these little hunters. Yes, you are very fierce. Very scary." The smallest cub, the one that had jumped, made another hiss and pounced toward Minho. It was a perfect hunting leap, just like the adults had taught. But instead of jumping away or showing fear, Minho gently caught the cub in his arms. "Gotcha!" Minho laughed. He pulled the cub close and kissed the top of its furry head, right between its small ears. "Such a good hunter." "Yes, you are." The entire room went silent. The cub in Minho's arms stopped struggling. It made a small sound, almost like a question. Its eyes went wide. "Minho." Hyunwoo's voice was tight with panic. "Please step away from the Vrelth young." But Minho was not listening. Another cub had come closer, curious. Minho reached out and gently scratched behind its ears. "And you. Look at those stripes. So beautiful." The cub closed its eyes and made a rumbling sound. What is happening? Kreth's voice was loud and confused. What is your human doing to our cubs? Yuna moved forward carefully, her hands away from her weapons. Sir, he means no harm. He just thinks they are, She could not find the right words. Adorable. Minho supplied helpfully, now petting 2 cubs at once. A third one was trying to climb onto his lap. They are absolutely adorable. Look at their little paws. And those ears. One of the Vrelth adults made a choking sound. Adorable? These are trained warriors. They are learning the ancient hunting ways. Oh, I am sure they are very good students, Minho said. He was now sitting on the floor with all 5 cubs around him. They had completely abandoned their hunting poses and were investigating this strange human who smelled different and made happy sounds. One cub was chewing on his sleeve. Another had discovered that if it pushed its head against Minho's hand, the human would pet it. This is... Kreth could not finish his sentence. He looked at his fellow Vrelth. They looked back at him, equally confused. Hyunwoo stepped forward, trying to save the situation. Ambassador, please forgive our colleague. Humans have a strong response to young creatures. We are biologically programmed to care for and protect the young of many species. But they are predators. Another Vrelth adult protested. They are dangerous. They are babies, Minho said simply, looking up with a huge smile. The smallest cub had curled up in his lap and was making a soft rumbling sound. Just precious little babies. Kreth stared at the scene in front of him. His fierce warrior cubs, trained since birth to show strength and dominance, were now playing with a human like they were harmless pets. One cub had rolled onto its back so Minho could rub its belly. Another was trying to catch Minho's fingers. I do not understand your species, Kreth said finally. That makes 2 of us. Hyunwoo muttered under his breath. Yuna watched the whole scene, and despite herself, she smiled. The cubs were really cute. She could see why Minho had broken protocol. One of them looked up at her with big, curious eyes. She knelt down slowly and held out her hand. The cub sniffed it carefully, then bumped its head against her palm. Yuna started petting it. Hyunwoo put his face in his hands. This was going to be a very long diplomatic mission. The meeting had moved to a larger conference room. The Vrelth sat on one side of the table, looking unhappy. The humans sat on the other side, looking embarrassed. Well, most of them looked embarrassed. Minho still had a small smile on his face, and one of the cubs kept peeking at him from behind Kreth's chair. Hyunwoo cleared his throat. Ambassador Kreth, I apologize for the confusion earlier. Perhaps we should start fresh and discuss the trade agreements. No, Kreth's voice was firm. First, I must understand what happened. Your people treated our warrior cubs like... He struggled to find words. Like weak things that need protection. This is a great insult to the Vrelth way. It was not meant as an insult, Hyunwoo said carefully. Perhaps we should bring in someone who can explain human behavior better. We have a specialist on the station. 20 minutes later, Soman arrived. She was a child psychologist who studied how different species raise their young. She looked at the situation, then at Minho, then at the Vrelth cubs who were now trying very hard to sit still and look fierce again. Okay, Soman said, sitting down. Let me explain something about humans. We evolved on a planet with many dangerous animals. But we also evolved to care for our young for a very long time. Human babies are helpless for years. So we developed very strong instincts to protect and nurture anything that looks young. But our cubs are not human cubs, one of the Vrelth adults said. They are predators. Human brains do not care, Soman explained. When we see certain features, big eyes, small bodies, soft fur, high-pitched sounds, our brains release chemicals that make us want to protect and care for those beings. We call it the cute response. We cannot help it. It is biological. Kreth looked skeptical. So you are saying your people are slaves to these chemicals? That you cannot control your behavior? We can control it, someone said. But it takes effort. And most humans see no reason to fight it. Caring for young things makes us happy. One of the cubs made a small sound. Everyone turned to look. The cub was staring at a bag Yuna had brought into the room. The bag had snacks in it, protein bars meant for humans. Yuna noticed the cub staring. Are they hungry? She asked. Relf cubs learned to hunt for their food, Kreth said proudly. We do not simply give them meals. They must earn what they eat. Yuna frowned. But they are children. How old are they? By your years? 8 to 10 of your solar cycles. 8 to 10 years old, Yuna repeated slowly. And you make them hunt for every meal? It makes them strong. Yuna looked at Hyunwoo. Hyunwoo gave a very small shake of his head, which meant do not start a fight. But Yuna was already reaching into her bag. She pulled out a protein bar and broke it into pieces. Would it be okay if I offered them a snack? She asked. As a gesture of friendship? Kreth wanted to say no. But this was a diplomatic mission, and refusing a gift would be rude. If you wish. Yuna knelt down and held out the pieces. The cubs looked at their elders for permission. After a moment, Kreth made a small gesture. The cubs rushed forward, grabbing the food pieces and eating them quickly. They made happy sounds as they ate. Minho watched with interest. When was the last time they ate? Yesterday morning, one of the Vrolth adults said. They are training to go longer without food. It builds endurance. They are babies, Minho said, and his voice was not happy anymore. You are starving babies. We are creating warriors, Kreth said firmly. The galaxy is dangerous. We cubs do not survive. We prepare them for reality. There are other ways to be strong, Soman said gently. Human children face many challenges too, but we support them while they learn. We have found that children who feel safe and loved actually become stronger adults. Impossible, another Vrolf said. Comfort creates weakness, does it? Soman pulled up a screen and showed videos. Human children playing sports, working in teams, solving problems. The children in the videos were laughing and smiling, but they were also showing incredible skill and determination. These children are happy, but they are also learning to be strong, smart, and brave. The Vrolf watched the videos in silence. On the screen, human children worked together to build something complex. When one child struggled, others helped. When they succeeded, they all celebrated together. One of the cubs moved closer to the screen. Fascinated over the next hour, something strange happened. While the adults talked, Minho had quietly created a play area in the corner of the room. He used chairs and blankets to make a small fort. The cubs, who were supposed to be sitting still and being fierce, kept looking at the fort. Finally, the smallest cub could not take it anymore. It crept over to the fort and peeked inside. Minho smiled. Want to explore? The cub looked back at Kreth. The ambassador was deep in conversation with Hyunwoo and did not notice. The cub went into the fort. Soon, all 5 cubs were in the fort. Minho had given them some simple toys. Nothing special, just things to stack and sort. But the cubs were playing with them, making small happy sounds. And then it happened. One of the cubs started purring. Every Vrolth adult stopped talking immediately. They turned to stare at the fort. The purring sound was soft but unmistakable. By the old stars, Kreth whispered. They are purring. Is that bad? Hyunwoo asked. Vrolth only purr with family, one of the adults explained. Only when they feel completely safe. Only with those they trust absolutely. The cubs emerged from the fort, and they went straight to Minho. They pressed against him, still purring. Their eyes half closed in happiness. Minho pet them gently. Not understanding what a big moment this was, Creth stood up slowly. He looked at his cubs, at the human who had somehow made them feel safer than their own training grounds, and at the other humans who were watching with soft expressions. "I do not understand your species," Creth said again. "You have no claws, no fangs, no armor. You are soft and weak. Yet my cubs treat you like family. How?" "Maybe," someone said quietly, "strength is not just about claws and fangs. Maybe sometimes the strongest thing you can do is be kind." Creth was quiet for a long time. Finally, he said, "I need to think about this. We will continue this meeting tomorrow." As the Vrelf prepared to leave, the cubs did not want to go. They clung to Minho, making sad sounds. The human knelt down and hugged each one. "I will see you tomorrow," he promised. "We can play more then." The smallest cub touched its small paw to Minho's hand, then followed its family dot after the Vrelf left. Hyunwoo turned to his team. "Well, that was unexpected. They were starving those cubs," Yuna said angrily, "making them fight for food. They are just children. Different species have different ways," Hyunwoo reminded her. "We cannot judge." "Cannot judge?" Yuna looked shocked. "Hyunwoo, those babies were so hungry. They ate human protein bars like they were the best thing ever. And they only get to eat if they successfully hunt? That is cruel." Minho was quiet, thinking. Finally, he said, "Did you see how happy they were when they played? Real happiness, not the fake fierceness they were trying to show. Those cubs are not happy with their current life." "What are you suggesting?" Hyunwoo asked. "I am not sure yet," Minho admitted. "But I think we just learned something important. The Vrelf might be great warriors, but they do not know how to let their children be children." Outside, on the Vrelf ship, Creth watched his cubs settle down to sleep. They were still making small purring sounds, even in their dreams. And Creth wondered, for the first time in his life, if the old ways were really the best ways after all. The third day of meetings was supposed to start at dawn. But when the Vrelf arrived, Creth looked tired and angry. "There is a problem," he announced. "Our cubs refuse to train. They only want to see the humans." Hyunwoo blinked. "I am sorry, what?" One of the Vrelf adults stepped forward, looking embarrassed. "This morning, we began combat training, as always. The cubs were supposed to practice hunting moves, but they would not focus. They kept asking when they could see Minho. When we insisted they train, they became difficult." "Difficult how?" Someone asked. One of them sat down and refused to move. Two others started crying. The small one, Gresh, bit his instructor and ran away. We found him outside the human quarters, waiting by the door. Minho felt his heart squeeze. "Is Gresh okay? Did he get in trouble?" Creth's expression was hard to read. "He is confined to quarters. This behavior is unacceptable. In 2 days, you humans have ruined cycles of training. We did not mean to cause problems," Hyunwoo said carefully. "Perhaps if we explain to the cubs that they need to focus on their training." "No," Creth interrupted. "You do not understand. This is not just about training. This is about our entire way of life. The Vrelf are warriors. We have survived for thousands of years because we are strong and fierce. If our cubs become soft, we will become weak as a species." Taeyang entered the room. He was a human ethologist who studied predator species. He had been reviewing data about the Vrelf for days. "May I say something?" Creth gestured for him to speak. "I have studied many predator species," Taeyang began. "And I have studied humans too. Humans are also predators, Ambassador. We hunted on our planet for millions of years. But we did it differently than most species. How?" One of the Vrelf asked. "We used teamwork. We used tools. And we used something called persistence hunting. We would follow prey for days, working together, never giving up. We became the most successful hunters on our planet not because we were the strongest or the fastest, but because we were the smartest and we worked together. Taiyang pulled up more data, and we learned something important. The best hunters were not the ones who were trained to be cruel. They were the ones who were secure, confident, and connected to their pack. Human children who grow up feeling loved and safe become the strongest adults. This is very different from what we know, Kreth said slowly. Yes, Taiyang agreed. But Ambassador, may I ask a personal question? How many cubs have you raised? Kreth was quiet. I have sired 5 cubs. 3 survived their training. The room went very quiet. 3 out of 5? Yuna whispered, horrified. Another Vralth adult spoke up. I raised 4. 1 survived. 6 cubs, another said. 2 lived. Taiyang looked at them with sad eyes. And you think this makes your species strong? It is the way things are, Kreth said, but his voice was not as firm as before. The weak do not survive. Only the strong carry on. Or, Minho said gently, you were killing cubs who could have been strong if they were given the chance to grow. Kreth turned on him. You know nothing of our ways. You, who treat warrior cubs like pets. You, who give them food freely and make them soft with your affection. I know that every cub deserves to live, Minho said, standing up. I know that being kind is not the same as being weak. And I know that right now, there is a small cub sitting alone somewhere, probably scared and confused because he wanted to see a friend. Gresh is learning discipline, Kreth said. Gresh is 8 years old, Minho replied. He should be learning how to play, how to think, how to be happy. There is time for discipline too, but not like this. Not through fear and punishment. Before Kreth could respond, alarms started blaring. A Vralth rushed into the room, looking panicked. Ambassador! It is Gresh. He has escaped confinement and is in the station ventilation system. We cannot reach him. Everyone ran to the security center. On the screens, they could see the small cub crawling through the tight spaces of the ventilation shafts. He was moving with purpose, clearly looking for something. Where is he going? Kreth demanded. The security officer traced the path. He is heading toward the human living quarters. He is looking for me, Minho said quietly. He is looking for somewhere he feels safe. Kreth slammed his fist on the console. This is exactly the problem. You have made him weak. He runs away from training and looks for comfort. He is 8 years old and scared, Yuna said firmly. Of course he wants comfort. That is not weakness. That is being a child. On the screen, Gresh reached a vent opening and squeezed through. He dropped down into a corridor right outside Minho's quarters. The small cub sat down and started making sad, crying sounds. Minho did not wait for permission. He ran out when he reached the corridor. Gresh looked up with big, frightened eyes. The cub was shaking. Minho knelt down slowly. Hey there, little hunter, he said softly. Rough morning? Gresh made a small sound and rushed into Minho's arms. The cub buried his face in the human's chest and cried. Real, hard crying. His small body shook with sobs. Man Ho held him close, rocking gently. It is okay. You are safe. I have got you. By the time the others arrived, Gresh had cried himself to sleep in Minho's arms. The human was sitting on the floor, stroking the cub's fur gently, whispering soft words. Kreth stood in the doorway, staring at his son. At the Vralth ambassador's future heir, sleeping peacefully in the arms of a human. I do not understand, Kreth said, and his voice was quiet now, not angry. He has never been this calm. Even as a very young cub, he was always tense, always ready to fight. I thought that was good. I thought that meant he was strong. Maybe, Soman said gently. He was just always afraid. Kreth flinched like he had been hit. Taiyang pulled up a file on his tablet. Ambassador, I need to show you something. It is classified intelligence, but given the situation, I have been authorized to share it. We know why you really came here. He displayed the data. Population numbers, birth rates, survival rates. The Vrelth are dying out, Taiyang said quietly. Your population has been declining for 200 years. At current rates, your species will be gone in 5 generations. The Vrelth adults all looked shocked. How do you know this? We are very good at gathering information, Taiyang said. But more importantly, we understand why. Your training methods kill more than half your cubs. Your society is so focused on creating warriors that you have forgotten how to simply let your children live. Kreth looked at Gresh, still sleeping peacefully. I thought I was preparing him for a hard galaxy. I thought I was making him strong. You were hurting him, Minho said simply. But it is not too late to change. Change how? Kreth asked. This is all we know. Minho smiled softly. Then maybe it is time to learn something new. Gresh stirred in his sleep and made a small purring sound. His small paw reached out and grabbed Minho's finger, holding on tight even while sleeping. Kreth watched this and felt something break inside his chest. Some old, hard belief that had been there for so long he had forgotten it was not truth, just tradition. Teach me, Kreth said finally. Teach me how to let him be a child and still grow into someone strong. Soman smiled. We can do that. But first, let us let him sleep. He has had a very big morning. As they quietly left the corridor, Yuna stayed back to guard Minho and the sleeping cub. She watched the humans sit there patiently, holding a small alien child who had run away from everything he knew, just to find kindness. And she thought that maybe, just maybe, this was what humans did best. Not making war or building ships or conquering space, but simply knowing how to love. The next day started differently. The Vrelth cubs came to the human section with their adults, but this time there was no talk of hunting poses or warrior training. Instead, Minho had set up a large open space with soft mats on the floor and various objects scattered around. What is all this? Kreth asked, looking confused. This is how human children learn, Jiho explained. He was an educator who specialized in child development. We are going to show you play-based learning. Play? One of the Vrelth adults said the word like it was foreign. That is for very young cubs only. Once they can walk properly, playtime ends and training begins. For humans, play never really ends, Jiho said with a smile. Play is how children learn everything important. Problem solving, social skills, physical coordination, creative thinking. Watch. He gestured to Minho, who was already sitting with the 5 cubs. The cubs were cautious at first, remembering they were supposed to be fierce warriors. But when Minho rolled a ball to Gresh, the small cub could not help himself. He batted at it with his paw. The ball rolled to another cub. That cub pounced on it. Soon all 5 cubs were chasing the ball around, making happy sounds and tumbling over each other. They are just playing, Kreth said. How does this make them strong? Watch their movements, Taiyang pointed out. See how they calculate the ball's speed? How they work together without being told. How they use their whole bodies to move quickly. These are all hunting skills. But they are learning through joy, not fear. After an hour of play, the cubs were tired and happy. Minho gave them water and healthy snacks, not making them hunt for food, just providing it freely. Now watch this, Jiho said. He set up a simple puzzle, a box with food inside, but the lid was locked with a simple mechanism. He put the box in front of the cubs. The cubs, interested in the food, immediately tried to break the box open. When that did not work, they got frustrated. In Vrelth training, we would make them work on this until they solved it or gave up, Kreth explained. No help. They must be independent. That teaches them the problems are lonely and frustrating, Selman said. Watch what we do instead. Minho sat down next to the cubs. That is a tricky box, he said. Let me give you a hint. See this part here? He pointed to a sliding mechanism. What if you tried pushing this sideways instead of pulling? Gresh studied the box, then carefully pushed the slider. It moved. The cub's eyes went wide with excitement. He pushed it all the way, and part of the box opened. Together with another cub, they figured out the rest and got the food. The cubs celebrated, jumping and purring with pride. You helped them, one of the Vrelth said. That is cheating. That is teaching, Jiho corrected. We call it scaffolding. We give children support while they learn, then gradually remove that support as they get better. They still solved the puzzle. They still feel proud. But they did not waste time being frustrated and angry. As the morning continued, more demonstrations happened. The cubs learned to work in teams. They learned to share. They learned that asking for help was smart, not weak. Then something happened. One of the cubs, practicing a jumping exercise, landed wrong and yelped in pain. Immediately, all the human adults rushed over with concern. But what shocked the Vrelth was that the other cubs also ran to their hurt friend, making worried sounds. Why did the others stop? Kreth asked. They should continue their training. They are worried about their friend, Yuna said, already checking the cub's leg gently. That is more important than any exercise. The hurt cub was crying. In Vrelth training, cubs were taught not to cry. Showing pain was weakness. But Nari, a human pediatrician, knelt down and spoke softly. I know it hurts, she said gently. It is okay to cry. You took a hard fall. Let me see your leg. The cub let her examine the injury. It was not serious, just a bad bruise. Nari carefully wrapped it and gave the cub something for the pain. You are very brave, she told the cub. And you will be fine. Rest for today, okay? The cub nodded, still sniffling. The other cubs gathered around, touching their friend gently with their paws, offering comfort. Thressa, a female Vrelth warrior, watched this scene with strange intensity. She had been quiet all morning, just observing. Now she spoke. The injured cub is my son. In our ways, he would be punished for being careless. He would receive no comfort, no medicine. Pain teaches caution. Pain teaches fear, Nari said gently. Comfort and care teach that the world can be safe. That builds real confidence. Thressa was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, I have given birth to 5 cubs. I have 2 left alive. The humans went very quiet. My first cub died in combat training at age 6. A training accident. My second died of an illness at age 7. We do not believe in medicine for cubs. They must be strong enough to survive on their own. Thressa's voice was steady, but her eyes were not. My third cub fell from a climbing structure during endurance training. The fall should not have killed him, but we did not treat his injuries. He died 2 days later in great pain. Oh, Nari whispered, her eyes filling with tears. I am so sorry. I told myself it was the way, Thressa continued. I told myself that only the strong survive. That my other 2 cubs would be better because of this. But last night, I watched my youngest cub, safe and happy in these rooms with you humans, and I realized something. She looked at Kreth. I do not want him to be strong if being strong means being alone and afraid and hurt. I want him to be happy. Kreth looked like he had been struck. Teach me, Thressa said, and her voice broke. Teach me how to be a mother the way you are. Before I lose the 2 cubs I have left. The humans looked at each other. Then someone gestured to a quiet corner. "Let us talk." Over the next hours, something beautiful happened. Thressa sat with Nari, Soman, and Jiho, and they taught her everything. How to recognize when cubs were sick. How to comfort them when scared. How to set boundaries with kindness instead of punishment. How to celebrate successes and support failures. Meanwhile, Taiyang showed Kreth and the other adults videos of human military training. "You think we are soft because we are kind to our children," he said. "But look, these are human soldiers. Some of the toughest warriors in known space. And they all grew up with love and support." The video showed human soldiers doing incredible things. Working as perfect teams. Solving complex problems under pressure. Showing both fierce determination and deep compassion. "They are strong because they are secure," Taiyang explained. "They fight to protect what they love, not because they are afraid to be seen as weak." By evening, everything had changed. The Vrelth cubs were playing a game Minho had taught them, a type of tag mixed with hide and seek. It taught stealth, strategy, and quick thinking. But more importantly, it was fun. The cubs were laughing. Real, genuine laughter. Kreth watched his son, Gresh, hiding behind a cushion, his small tail swishing with excitement. The cub was completely focused on the game, but he was also completely happy. When Minho found him, Gresh jumped out with a playful roar, and both of them dissolved into giggles. "I have never heard him laugh like that," Kreth said quietly. "I did not know he could." "All children can laugh," Soman said, standing next to him. "If we let them." That night, the Vrelth cubs slept in the human quarters for the first time. They piled together in a big soft nest of blankets, with Minho and Yuna keeping watch. The cubs slept deeply, peacefully, without the nightmares that usually came from their harsh training. Thressa sat with her two cubs, stroking their fur gently as they slept. She was crying, but they were not sad tears. "I wasted so much time," she whispered. "I could have done this with all my cubs. I could have saved them." Nari put a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You did not know. You were following what you were taught. But now you know better. And you can do better." Thressa looked up. "Will you help me? Will you help all of us learn this new way?" "Yes," Nari promised. "For as long as you need us." In the doorway, Kreth stood watching his son sleep. For the first time in his life, the fierce Vrelth ambassador wondered if maybe, just maybe, the humans had discovered something his people had lost long ago. The knowledge that being strong enough to be gentle was the greatest strength of all. 2 weeks after first contact, the Krith Council arrived. These were the eldest Vrelth leaders, keepers of tradition, and they came to judge whether the diplomatic mission had succeeded or failed. Kreth stood on the landing platform, watching their ship dock. He was nervous. He knew that what the humans had taught him would seem like betrayal to the council. But when he looked at Gresh, playing peacefully with the other cubs nearby, he knew he could not go back to the old ways. The council members emerged. There were 5 of them, all ancient Vrelth with gray in their fur and scars from countless battles. Their leader was Elder Kira, who had trained 3 generations of Vrelth warriors. "Ambassador Kreth," Elder Kira's voice was hard and cold. "We have come to see these humans who claim to be worthy of alliance with the Vrelth. We hear troubling reports." "What reports?" Kreth asked, though he knew that our cubs have been corrupted, that they no longer train, that they play like infants, that they have become soft. Elder Kira looked around the station with disgust. "We also hear that you, the ambassador himself, have allowed this to happen." Before Kreth could respond, a small voice called out. "Papa!" Gresh came running over, followed by the other cubs. They were not practicing hunting poses. They were not trying to look fierce. They were just being children, happy to see Kreth after being apart for a few hours. Gresh hugged his father's leg. Kreth, without thinking, reached down and gently touched his son's head. The council members looked horrified. "What have they done to you?" Elder Kira demanded. "You show affection openly? You let the cub approach you without formality?" "Yes," Kreth said simply. "Because he is my son. And I love him." Elder Kira turned to the other council members. "This mission has failed. We are leaving immediately. And these cubs will return to proper training." "No." Thresis stepped forward. "The cubs stay here. You dare defy the council?" "I dare protect my children," Thresis said firmly. "I have already lost 3 cubs to our proper training. I will not lose the 2 I have left." Elder Kyra's eyes narrowed. "Then you are no true Vrelth warrior." "Perhaps," Thressa agreed. "Or perhaps I am finally learning what it means to truly be strong." "Enough of this," Elder Kyra turned to leave. "The council will discuss appropriate punishment for this disgrace." "Wait," Hyunwoo stepped forward. "Before you judge, perhaps you should see what the cubs have learned." "They have learned to be weak," Elder Kyra said. "What else is there to see?" "Please," Kreth said. "Give us 1 hour. If you still believe the cubs have been corrupted, we will accept the council's judgment." Elder Kyra considered this. 1 hour. No more. They moved to a large training room. The council members sat in judgment, their expressions stern. The cubs stood in a line, trying not to look nervous. Behind them, the humans waited quietly. "Show them what you have learned," Minho said gently to the cubs. What happened next surprised everyone. The cubs demonstrated their new skills. But these were not the old hunting exercises. These were problem-solving challenges, teamwork drills, creative thinking games. The cubs worked together flawlessly. When one struggled, others helped. When they succeeded, they celebrated together. Then Jiho brought out a complex puzzle box, much harder than the one from before. This would normally take an adult Vrelth warrior 10 minutes to solve alone, he explained. "Watch." The cubs gathered around the box. They studied it carefully. Gresh noticed something first and pointed it out to the others. Another cub tried a technique and it partially worked. They built on each other's discoveries, communicating with small sounds and gestures. In 3 minutes, they had the box open. Elder Kira sat forward. "How?" "They worked together," someone explained. "They shared information. They built on each other's strengths. One cub alone might take much longer. But 5 cubs working as a true team? They are unstoppable." "This is not how Vrelth train," one of the council members said. "No," Kreth agreed. "It is better." Nari stepped forward with medical data. "I have been monitoring the cubs' health. In 2 weeks, they have gained weight. Their stress hormones have normalized. Their immune systems are stronger. They sleep better. They are healthier than they have been in their entire lives." "But are they fierce?" Elder Kira demanded. "Can they still hunt? Can they still fight?" Tai Yang pulled up video. "Yesterday, we ran a simulation. A hunting scenario. Watch." The video showed the cubs working together to hunt a mechanical target. They used stealth, strategy, and teamwork. They were focused and determined. And when they succeeded, they moved with deadly efficiency. But after the exercise ended, they celebrated with joy. They were fierce when they needed to be, and joyful when they were safe. "They can turn it on and off," Taiyang explained. "They do not have to be in warrior mode every moment. They can be fierce hunters when hunting, and happy children when safe. This is real strength. The strength to know when to fight and when to rest." Elder Kyra was quiet for a long time. Finally, she said, "I want to speak with the cubs, alone." The adults stepped back. The 5 cubs stood before the council, small but not afraid. "Tell me, young ones," Elder Kyra said. Do you wish to stay with the humans? Or return to traditional training? Gresh looked at his friends, then spoke. I want to stay. The humans teach us to be strong, but they also teach us to be happy. I did not know we could be both. Are you not afraid that you will become weak? Another council member asked. I am less afraid now than I have ever been, Gresh said. Before, I was afraid all the time. Afraid of failing. Afraid of punishment. Afraid of dying in training like other cubs. Now I am only afraid of going back to that. The other cubs made sounds of agreement. Elder Kyra stood and walked to Gresh. The small cub stood his ground, though he had to look up to meet her eyes. You know, Elder Kyra said quietly, I was like you once, small, scared. I lost 6 siblings to training. I survived because I learned to hide my fear, to never show weakness. I thought that made me strong. She paused. I was wrong. The entire room went silent. Elder Kyra turned to the council members. Our species is dying. Our cubs die in training at rates that would make any species weep. And why? Because we are too proud to admit that our old ways are failing. She looked at Kreth. This ambassador has done what none of us had the courage to do. He has chosen his son's life over tradition. He has chosen the future over the past. Elder Kyra, one of the council members, protested. You cannot mean. I mean exactly what I say, Elder Kyra interrupted. I propose a new alliance with the humans. Not just for trade, but for knowledge. They will teach us how to raise cubs who are both fierce and happy, who can be warriors when needed, but who do not have to live every moment in fear and pain. This is madness, another council member said. This is survival, Elder Kyra replied. Look at these cubs. Really look at them. They are healthier, smarter, more capable than any cubs I've seen in decades. And they are happy. When was the last time you saw a truly happy Vrelth cub? No one could answer. Elder Kyra turned to Hinwu. Humans, we request a formal educational exchange. Send your teachers to our worlds. We will send our cubs to your schools. Teach us this new way. Hyunwoo smiled. We would be honored. Over the next hours, the details were worked out. The Vrelth would send groups of cubs to live with human families, to attend human schools, to learn this balance of strength and joy. In return, adult Vrelth would learn from human teachers, doctors, and counselors. As the agreements were signed, Gresh sat in Minha's lap, watching the adults work. The human was absently petting the cub's fur, and Gresh was purring softly. Seul, a human colony coordinator, approached Kreth. We have families ready to host Vrelth cubs on 6 different colony worlds. They are excited to meet them. Will they be safe? Kreth asked. They will be loved, Isiel promised. And yes, very safe. Theresa joined them. I wish to stay with my cubs when they go to the human colonies, to learn alongside them, to become the mother they deserve. We would love to have you, Isiel said warmly. As the day ended, the Vrelth prepared to leave. The cubs would stay on the station for another week, then travel to different human worlds. They were excited and nervous. Gresh hugged Minho tightly. Will I see you again? Of course, Minho promised. I will come visit. And when you are older, maybe you can come back and visit me. You can show me all the amazing things you have learned. I will be the best, Gresh said seriously. The best hunter and the best friend and the best everything. Minho laughed and kissed the top of the cub's head. You already are, little one. You already are. Later, Yuna found Minho on the observation deck, watching the Vrelth ships prepare for departure. So, she said, settling next to him, I guess we accidentally adopted an entire warrior species. Minho laughed. I guess we did. The council is already calling this the Great Softening in their records. Yuna continued. Some of them still think we are corrupting their cubs. Maybe we are, Minho said thoughtfully. But if corruption means teaching children that they are valued and loved, if it means showing them they can be strong without being cruel, then I'm okay being a corrupting influence. The galaxy is going to be a very different place, Yuna mused. When you have Realth warriors who know how to be fierce and kind, who fight to protect what they love instead of fighting because they are afraid.